David is speaking. He says, teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a level path because of my foes. Do not deliver me over to the desire of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such as breathe out violence. Listen to what he says. I would have despaired unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. Now, what in the world does he mean by waiting on the Lord? Does that mean that you are to wait for every single decision and make some request that he give you direction? Or is there something easier about it than that? Waiting on the Lord is a vital principle to every single Christian. We all have decisions to make. We all have opportunities that we face. If you live your life by simply moving on, taking advantage of the opportunity, as you would think, and never even considering the fact that God has a will and a perfect plan, and that also he not only has a plan, but he has timing in that plan. There's some things he's provided for you that are not available to you yet, but it's in his plan. There's some things that he has that's available now. And there are some issues in life from which you and I have to back off and say, okay, God, give me direction, give me wisdom. How do I respond to this? God's timing is absolutely basic and essential. So when you think about your life and how you live it, it's absolutely essential that you and I walk in the will of God. And in order for us to walk in the will of God, I must walk according to his timing, not mine. Because so many things we think are here now for me, and if I don't get it, there must be something wrong. And oftentimes we make mistakes because we don't stop to consider, what's the will of the Father? What does he want to accomplish in my life? Waiting upon the Lord is not an easy thing. And sometimes when people, most of the time I'm afraid, people say, I've waited and waited and waited, and God, I don't see anything going on, so I think I'll do this. It's a disaster. Watch this. His plan is perfect. His timing is perfect. He knows when you and I are ready for whatever he has for us. And wise men and women wait for God to reveal his timing and his plan. I'm doing what God has called me to do up to this point, and I'm waiting for him. Quietly, I'm waiting for him for the next step. And God does not want us doing nothing. He wants us to be productive all the days of our life. But there are times when he has a turn in our life, a change in our life. And for the moment we think of what's going on, we may be a little bit confused, and he understands that. But if I'm wise enough to wait for clear direction, then I will accomplish what God wants me to accomplish, and we'll be able to have whatever God has in store for us. Timing with God is very important. Listen, only he knows when you're ready for certain things in your life. Only he knows when you can handle certain blessings in your life. Only he knows the dangers out there that you face. And he knows where you're strong, and he knows where you're weak. And oftentimes he's saying, not now, not now, not now. He chooses for each of us what he knows we personally need at that particular point in our life. So waiting is purposeful. Waiting has a sense of direction and a sense of expectancy. God, I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do in my life. What's next? So the question is this. Are you walking in the will of God as best you know how? Look in this 25th Psalm. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul, O my God, in you I trust. Do not let me be ashamed. Do not let my enemies exult over me. Indeed, none of those who wait for you will be ashamed. Look at that. That is, you won't be disappointed. You won't be ashamed if you wait upon the Lord. So if somebody says, well, what are you waiting for? And if you said, well, I'm waiting for God's direction, here's what they'll say if they're sort of half ungodly. Well, how do you know when you have it? Who do you think you are? You don't have to answer that question. You're a follower of Jesus Christ and dwelt with the Holy Spirit, who will give you direction and guidance for your life in every single decision that you have to face. Timing is very, very important to God. He doesn't just do this and do that. God has his own schedule. And think about this. He knows your life from beginning to end. So he knows exactly where you are at this moment. He knows exactly where you are in comparison to where you're going to be, because he knows the end as well as the beginning. He's an awesome God who has provided the very best for you. But you and I have to wait for his timing in order to enjoy his blessings at the very best. Wait and watch God work. Watch what he does. Watch how he changes situations and circumstances. And we've all been in situations where we think, God, what in the world are you going to do? Give him a little time. God knows exactly what he's doing. Listen, he's not scratching his head trying to figure out something you did and trying to get you out of it. No, God knows exactly how you got there, why you got there. He knows how to change any circumstance of your life. But I've got to be willing to let him do it his way, not manipulate the circumstances to get it the way I want it. And it doesn't make a difference who you are and what your place in life is. That is, what's best for your life. That's what God has in mind. And only what's best for your life is the only thing that's going to bring you peace and joy and happiness and a sense of fulfillment in life. So if I'm up here scratching around for this and that and so forth to make me happy, the issue is, do I have the courage to sit and be quiet and say, Lord, what do you want? If God has a will for your life and a plan for any particular time that you're asking him about anything, then he is under obligation to answer your petition. That is, to give you wisdom if you ask for it, to answer your prayer if you're seeking direction and guidance. He says, listen to this, I will instruct you. I will teach you in the way which you should go. I will guide you with my eye upon you. That's God's awesome promise to his children. And so what does it take? First of all, I got to trust him. If I don't trust him, I won't obey him. And we sing that song, Trust and Obey. There's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. We've been singing it for years and years and years, and few people believe it. Listen to that. Trust and obey, for there is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Well, if I want God's best and I want him to act in my behalf, then I have to trust him. He doesn't say I'll always understand. He doesn't say I'll always like it. He doesn't say, well, yeah, you prefer that this way. No. If I'm willing for him to bless me with his best, I've got to trust him to do it his way. And I've got to trust him when he says no, and trust him when he says yes, and trust him that because he knows me and loves me absolutely perfectly, as he loves you perfectly, unconditionally, that he will only do what is right. This is something else it takes, humility. Because you see, if I'm not trusting him, what am I saying? I know better than God for myself. Listen, what you and I know would be like one grain of sand. If you piled up all the sand of all the beaches in the world, one grain wouldn't even begin to match it. So I got to trust him. I have to have a humble spirit that he knows better than I know. And then I've got to be patient. And patience means I wait for further direction. God, what's your timing? And so sometimes we have to wait a long time. But of course, it takes courage. It takes courage to wait on God. Courage to resist three things: the temptation to follow your schedule and forget about what God desires for your life. Get ahead of God. Temptation to get ahead of God. Well, sometimes what God does for us, it takes patience to wait for him to make the way. And we have to resist the temptation of the pressure of others. Well, now here's what I think you ought to do. The next time somebody says to you, well, now here's what I think you ought to do, I got an answer for you. You say to them, thank you very much, but you're not me. Because listen, you're not me. You can't tell me. You can tell me what you think, but don't expect me to just jump up and do it, because you're not me. You don't know where I've come from. You don't know the will of God for my life. Do I want to hear from God or from my friends or my enemies or people who don't care? God's blessings await those who are willing to wait for him and to receive them in his time and in his way. But I must resist the temptation to listen to other people. And then I must resist the temptation to be afraid. But suppose it doesn't turn out for me that way. I don't want anything in my life that God doesn't want. And if I said to you, I'm going to do this or do that and so forth, and it didn't happen that way, you say, well, would you be embarrassed? No, first of all, I'd be crazy to say what I'm going to do apart from God. And so you have to resist the temptation to get ahead of God's schedule and listening to other people and being afraid. You don't have to be afraid. Listen, when you are walking in God's will for your life, you don't have to be afraid of anything, because the sovereign God of this universe is your protector. And anyone who harms you has to deal with God. And God knows how to protect his children, and he knows how to defend them, whatever they're facing in life.